thanks very much to Ben Jones from Heljan for joining us this weekend. First of all then, Ben, a bit of an update on where you are with projects at the moment and what are we going to see next from you?
Okay, well, there's an awful lot in the pipeline, as you can probably guess. Things are sort of stacking up because of what's been happening this year, and products haven't come out at the sort of regular, steady flow that we would like. So next to arrive will probably be in 00. The next to arrive will be the Class 86s, and then the 25s will be shortly behind that. We would hope to have both of those here before the end of the year. Depending on the usual, with the usual caveats. At the moment, in O gauge, we've just recently signed off the Clayton Class 17, so they're not far away. And we've also got Great Western Railcars in both O gauge and 00, which will be, they might not squeak in this year, but they'll certainly be very early in the new year, I would have thought.
How about the 56? Because we've seen a taster of it on Heaton Lodge recently. Where does that one fall in the equation?
That's actually progressed really quickly. It took a long time to sort of get to the EP stage, but since then it's moved on really quickly, and we're really pleased with it. We had an improved. The first sample wasn't quite right. There were a lot of issues with it. We've since had an improved sample, which is much better. Still one or two little things to tidy up on it, but we're moving towards the getting the factory decorated samples now. Okay. So it's really coming on quickly.
Well, you've given it a good performance test so far on Heaton Lodge, anyway, with what Simon's been hanging behind it.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons we wanted to be we wanted to be more involved with Heaton Lodge Junction, because it's a perfect test environment for new locos. It really, there's nowhere else that puts them through that sort of challenge.
Now, going back to Worley last year, I think that we saw some of the first EP samples of the DMUs that you're bringing out, and that really quite substantial packaging that you're actually putting around the O gauge products now as well.
Oh, the aluminium packaging. Yeah, it's changed slightly since then. The factory that's supplying those has changed its mind. We're not going to have the aluminium sort of frame anymore. They'll be in a much lighter plastic frame, but still substantial, and they'll still be bolted to it. So I think the aluminium might have been a little bit too extravagant, perhaps.
Okay, it was certainly impressive anyway. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now you've got other things, obviously, sort of like a little bit further into to the distance, but it's quite evident, I think, that we've seen over the last year or so an increase in the pace of bringing things forward within the range. Anyway, so how have you actually achieved that over the last year?
We're just really we've got extra capacity. In terms of factory capacity that we've developed, which allows us to bring some products forwards that might have had to wait 2 or 3 years, perhaps. That's the main reason for it. Okay.
Now you've recently announced at the Modern Image O gauge event 73-1 and the Class 27 as well.
Yes. Yeah, and the 26 as well, an all-new 26 as well. Obviously the 26 and the 27 are closely related. But ever since I started at Heljan, we've had people asking for a 26. It's an obvious one to do. We did it quite a long time ago, but it was restricted to quite a short window of time in the career. Just because of the way the body was designed. We're now able to open that out and offer a much wider range on the 26. While we were doing that, we thought it would make sense to do the 27 as well. And then the 73 we've been getting a lot of requests for as well, and it makes a lot of sense from our point of view, because there are not a huge number of detail variations in it over the years, but there are a huge number of different liveries we can put it in.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. There seems to be maybe a little bit of a change of tack that Heljan have previously released locos with the basic decoration there, but unnumbered, obviously for modelers to number themselves. But there seems to be a change coming where it'll be specific identities for specific products. Is that so that you can accommodate sort of like any variations, maybe slightly tooling wise, and obviously just making sure that the logo's right for that number?
I think there's various different aspects in this. We're because the all gauge market is growing, we're able to produce more locos, which means that we're not restricted to maybe one body shell, one variant, as we were at the beginning when the demand was less certain and the quantities or the demand was lower. So it's getting a bit more like double O in that respect. We've got more people moving up from N and double O to all gauge, and they're less willing, we think, to put all the numbers and bits on themselves in the way that all gauge modelers have always been used to. We found actually that when we've produced locos that are fully numbered recently, they're the fastest selling ones. So it's a case of catering for a changing market, really.
Yeah.
It's getting a bit more like double O, although I don't think there'll ever be a point where we don't do unnumbered versions. We're trying it with the 73, obviously they're all numbered, but that doesn't mean by the time these things are released, it doesn't mean that we won't add some unnumbered versions, for instance, if the demand is really high.
Yeah.
We get a lot of requests, we can always add some unnumbered variants.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, one thing that you've said there, obviously, about people changing scale. Why do you think people are actually doing that?
Well, maybe they're not changing scale. Maybe they're just buying all gauge as well as double O. I don't know. But you know, well, we've all got too many trains and different scales and things. So, but I think it's the presence of all gauge that really attracts people to it. The sheer kind of heft of it that draws people in, and the fact that you can have sound. I mean, you can have a big speaker and big sound and smoke and all that sort of thing. It's perhaps a bit closer to the real thing than the smaller scales are.
Yeah, it's a good point actually. But I also think about certain products which have opened up sort of like new marketplaces a little bit more. Thinking about obviously third rail EMUs sort of like a few years ago in 4mm scale, and like Dapol's 08 to bring people into smaller O gauge layouts. But of course, your O2 is going to suit that quite well as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the O2, the reaction to since we announced the O2 last month has been tremendous. It's yeah, I mean, you could almost, you know, you could have a little shelf layout in all gauge with an O2 and a couple of wagons pushing it around, you know, or a back of an old door or something like that. It opens up a lot of possibilities.
But I think it's a proper modeller's logo as well, that there's so much that you can do with it in terms of weathering and the environment that you then create around, sort of like themed on that logo, particularly if you've got industrial inclinations to start butchering it about a bit, and obviously just put some real scruffy stuff around it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's made for that. Yeah, and it's I think that's partly why the reaction to it has been so good, because people can see the possibilities with it.
Yeah. Okay. So steam-wise, I mean, we've talked very much about diesels, but what's still to come through steam-wise?
We've just received the first samples, first shots off the tooling of the revised O2s, the L&R O2s.
Yeah.
There's a lot of O2s, so it gets confusing. I have to sort of be more specific. But yeah, Gresley O2s, the 280s. We've just had the first shots off the tooling. No complete samples yet, unfortunately. No running samples.
Yeah.
But these are the ones with the Great Northern cabs and tenders. And there's a huge range of variety, a huge variety in that product now, in that model. So we've got lots of different versions with L&R cabs and GN tenders, or vice versa, that sort of thing. So I think that'll really open up that model to a much wider range of people now, because people will want maybe a couple of different variations, that sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing the complete samples of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much for a catch up on a lot of projects there that you've got on the go. Certainly got your hands full with it. And just sort of like looking beyond that, we've had a couple of announcements, obviously, in O gauge, as we've said, obviously with the 73, 26 and 27. Have you got any other news for us, Ben?
Yeah, well, normally, obviously, we announce things at shows. So at Telford or Whalley, we make our big announcements each year. We don't have that opportunity this year, so it's nice to be able to do it. It's nice to have the opportunity to do it slightly differently. We are working. Obviously, we've talked a lot about O gauge this year, but we have got a few things on the go in 00 as well. We've got the O2 in O gauge as well, the Yorkshire Engine Company O2. We're just about to announce all the different livery variations on that. We'll do that later this week. But that's people already know about that. It's coming, but there'll be lots of different BR and industrial versions of that, more than there are in O gauge actually. And the other thing that's moving along, not as quickly as we'd like, but it's moving along, is we're working on a Class 104 DMU.
Wow.
So that'll be, as I say, it's not moving along as quickly as we like because we can't get out to do surveys and things like that and do photographing, and because of local lockdowns and all sorts of things. But we've done a huge amount of research on that already, and that'll cover everything from the late 50s right through till the early 90s when they were withdrawn, with different end variations, things like that, sort of lamps and head code panels and all that sort of thing. And obviously there'll be the 3-car versions, so we can do the Blackpool sets and the Buxton sets. But there'll also be a 2-car power trailer version, so we can do the northeastern sets that work around Leeds, and far beyond that across Yorkshire and the northeast and whatnot. And we'll also be able to do, because we're because we're doing the 3-car, we'll also be able to do power twin sets, like I think the one everybody will want will be the ScotRail Mexican beam. So we'll be able to do that, and we'll be able to do Network Southeast as well.
Yeah, because they certainly did get about a bit over the course of their life. But I mean, particularly for any modeler who's got any claims to anything in the Northwest, absolutely, sort of like probably the biggest gaping hole that we've had in terms of a DMU, in terms of style. Top notch, like that.
They're the biggest. They're the biggest build of DMUs that have never been looked at in ready to run form. Because there were 300 vehicles, something like that, almost more than 300 vehicles, I think. Somebody will correct me, I know, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it was a big build, and they covered a huge area, not just in the Northwest, but down to the Midlands. Obviously, there were 4-car sets in the Northeast, but they were fairly specific with different body shells and things like that, different interior layouts. And then, they were around Leeds and West Yorkshire as well. And then in later years, Scotland, Gospel Oak to Barking, Thames Valley, Bedford, Bletchley. They really got around. Of course, they were never refurbished in the late 70s and 80s. They were slated for early withdrawal.
Yeah.
So they were never repainted in white and blue or blue and grey. But they ended up outlasting a lot of the sets that were refurbished. So so it's we think it's a really good one to do, and it fits in with things like 25s that we're doing, 86s. It's a really good companion for all those things that we're working on.
Yeah. Now, I mean, with these earlier first generation DMUs, that you've got a lot of glass and a lot of visibility into the inside of it. Now, obviously, with certain previous projects, I'm thinking sort of like the 128, the Gloucester parcels car and so on. you've got that hulking great chassis in there and sort of like enough weight and power to obviously sort of like pull a 20 car train round.
Yeah.
How are you going to address that within the design of the 104?
Well, since then, of course, we've done the Great Western Rail Car, which has got the it's got a low profile mechanism below the floor. Be a bit more difficult with the 104 because there's not the skirts between the bogies like there is on a Great Western Rail Car. But it'll be that sort of low profile mechanism, probably driving at least one bogie or possibly both on one car.
Okay. So electrical interconnectivity then, what are you looking at on that side?
We're still working out the details. Personally, I would like it to have just one decoder socket, so we'll need some interconnectivity between cars. We've obviously gone to town with the lighting features on the Great Western Rail Car, so we'd like to do something similar for the 104 and have interior lighting and destination blinds, lights and that sort of thing. And obviously there'll be provision for sound. Probably in the guards van there'll be a space for in the guards van for a speaker. But yeah, in an ideal world, we'll have some sort of electrically live coupling between cars.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I love that one. Really, really happy about that one. Obviously, it's going to be a way off. Gives me time to save up. So probably a couple of years or so before we can hold it in reality.
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, as we've done a lot of work on it already, but there's still a fair bit to do. And as soon as we've got any updates, we'll let everybody know.
Okay.
Then in terms of other announcements, we're just about to announce a rerun of the O-Gauge Class 60.
Okay.
Which when we produced it before, we only did 3 liveries, and obviously there are a lot more to go to, and there are a lot of contemporary liveries that we can cover. So they'll probably be announced later this week or next week once we've just got 1 or 2 little loose ends to tie up. And there'll be in the general release items, there'll be rail freight grey, DB cargo, but without any branding on. So because there's lots of variations to the branding on the DB cargo ones, there will be a GB rail freight one, and there will be Kappa, the DC rail. I've got one painted in blue with huge writing on the side, Kappa. That's one of the other versions we're doing. So yeah, there's again forgotten one. There'll be a weathered load haul one.
Okay.
Sort of weathered and tatty load haul.
Okay.
Done as 60059 Swindon Dalesman, which ran around like that for a long time.
Sounds like that's one of your personal choices, that one.
No, I just chose it because it looked nice. It's just a nice tatty one.
Yeah.
But and there will also be some. I don't want to spoil anybody's party, but there will be some exclusive editions as well on other liveries. Okay.
I mean, for me though, I mean the 60 is a little bit of an oddball that I'd scratch my head a little bit. That it's very much a train loco. It's a heavy hauler, and we don't normally see that many layouts where that would be sort of like performing its real function. I get that people will have depot layouts, and it's as valid there as any other loco or any other scenario, but we don't get to see many doing what they should be doing.
No, I think that's a fact. Yeah. It's interesting with the bigger locos, like the 56 as well. I mean, we've had a huge response to the 56 recently. And I think perhaps because people are looking forward to the 56 coming, they're also wanting another big freight loco to go with it. I just think that's the reason for the sudden upsurge in interest in the 60 again. But yeah, I think obviously a lot of people have depot layouts, perhaps because they don't have space for anything else. And maybe people have them on club layouts and things like that.
Yeah,
I guess where you can have that extra space.
Okay. So one other aspect as well. I mean, obviously there is a healthy back catalogue within the Heljan range. Are we going to see sort of like any revisits to things or some new liveries on existing tooling?
Absolutely, yeah. We're working on all sorts of things. I mean, we're always working on all sorts of things, as you could probably imagine. But yeah, the one of the things that we did this year that's gone really well is the cargo wagon vans. They sold out really quickly, so we're working on another run of those. And we're also working on a new run of the cargo wagon bogie flats as well, the IGA. So they'll be in the catalogue for 2021, including some new versions, like we did with the vans. We did the Rail Adventure barrier wagons for the new stock deliveries. Well, Rail Adventure have got some of the flats as well, so we'll do those to match the vans. And there'll be there'll be a pair of the Colas ferry vans that run with the cement wagons.
Okay.
So just trying to bring it forward, not just catering for sort of BR and sectorisation period, but trying to use the tooling we've got for contemporary models as well, contemporary liveries.
Yeah.
And we've also got beyond that, we've got another batch of our most recent Class 33, the one with the headlights. The first batch of those they sold out really quickly. Were very popular. So we're working on a second batch of those, which will include some different liveries, including Frag and Set Black, which I don't think we've done for a very long time. There will be another Dutch weathered one, and just trying to think. There's a couple of blue ones, and everybody's favourite D6508 Eastleigh in the sort of retro green.
Yeah, it keeps coming back, that one, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and there'll be another West Coast one as well. The West Coast one actually was one of the first to sell out. The weathered West Coast one. So we're doing another a different West Coast loco, but not weathered this time. So yeah, so that's quite a nice selection.
Yeah.
And then in terms of other reruns, we've got another run of the 50s coming, which were incredibly popular first time round. The 37.4s in O gauge, which we announced this time last year, but are not far away now. They'll be here pretty soon. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else at the moment.
One thing we did.
Sorry, go on. No, carry on.
One thing that we did speak about a bit back was going back to the catfish, wasn't it? Well, we talked about the couplings on it in particular.
Yeah. Oh, the dogfish. Yeah.
Dogfish.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Dogfish. Yeah. 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 I've asked them to ask the factory to look into a rerun of dogfish, probably to produce in a pack of 4, as we did before. So that's something. It's not signed and sealed yet, but it's something we would certainly like to do. But we just haven't confirmed it yet.
Yeah, because we haven't seen them for quite a while, so I think there's probably a bit of pent up demand out there, and everybody loves a bit of engineers stuff anyway.
No, absolutely, and we'd like to do. I mean, personally, I'd like to do more rolling stock as well, more wagons, and there's not many coaches left to do for the sort of period that we want to do. But yeah, I'd like to look into some more coaches and particularly wagons as well.
Yeah,
because there's obviously pent up demand for it.
Well, yeah, we have been very loco-centric, looking at or talking about a lot of the updates. But yeah, there's still a lot of mileage out there in terms of wagons and potential for stuff to go at. I think maybe the marketplace is actually becoming used to what is a proper market price for a wagon, because there's still a lot of development and tooling and decoration, etc., that goes into a wagon, but everybody still thinks that they cost a tenner.
Well, exactly. I think we all underestimate. I certainly did when I was, before I took this job, just how much work there is involved in a wagon, because obviously there's dozens of pieces, dozens of parts to put together. So there's the tooling costs can be quite high for a wagon, depending on how complicated it is. You've still got all the decoration and the time for the card and things like that. The only thing you're missing really is the motor and the electrics.
Yeah.
Which actually the motor is just a couple of dollars. It's not. Yeah. It's marginal really.
Yeah.
But so a lot of the costs are there that are still there with a loco. But you can't charge local prices for a wagon. People just wouldn't wear it. So yeah, it's tricky to find a balance.
Yeah. Well, good luck with it. Be interested to see, obviously, what you move on to in due course. But I think that's been a very comprehensive update for us. As you say, it's a different environment that we're actually having to do it in at the moment. I don't think any of us can actually sort of like pin the tail on a donkey as to when we will actually get back to physical shows. So I think obviously some of these virtual updates are probably a medium that we're still going to be getting used to sort of like through the course of the winter at least.
Absolutely, I think they're a really useful tool. It's great to make use of the technology that's available to so that we can still carry on talking to people, you know, and a two-way thing, so that we get to find out what people want, what people think, but also we can update everyone on what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, certainly as well, because you, in this format, you're actually broadcasting to a larger audience than even sort of obviously Wally is the biggest show. So
Right.
the number of unique visitors that we actually have to a virtual event is greater than even sort of like the largest show. Plus, I don't know how much of an overlap that there is, but if somebody in Australia or Canada obviously wants to watch this, it's a lot easier than getting on a plane to come to Birmingham.
Yeah, absolutely, and people can watch it at their leisure as well. You know, they can. It's an on-demand service rather than having to be in a specific place at a specific time.
And we
So
couldn't have had a conversation for half an hour without somebody interrupting anyway if it was a show. Bonus.
yeah. Well, she's at school, so my daughter's at school, so we're not going to get any little face coming in behind. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
brilliant. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. I wish you, you and the family and all of the team, all the very best through the course of the winter. And yeah, thanks for spending some time with us this weekend then, Ben.
No, thank you. It's a privilege. It's nice to be able to talk to you. Thank you for inviting us, and I just want to say thank you to everybody out there as well for their continued support and interest in our models. It's a pleasure to be involved with it.